So you're thinking about getting some chickens. My name is Brian. I'm the owner of B&R Homestead along with my wife Rachel. We live on just under a half acre here in North Georgia with chickens, 3 goats, some ducks, and 3 crazy little boys. And our life changed completely the day we got some chickens. My wife and I actually got our first small flock of chickens in 2019 going into 2020. And we only had 6. We had a couple of white leghorns and a couple barred rocks, but we moved to North Carolina in 2020 and we moved into an HOA. And so we had to vacate our flock because the people who bought our house in 2020 wanted the flock with it. And the thing about it was the 18 months that followed that move, get out of here, Waffles. My goats really like to get into the chicken food and they're manic and crazy. And I don't want them to get into it. But the thing that ended up happening when we moved to North Carolina is over the 18 months that we lived there, I agonized and thought about chickens the entire time because I loved having them and I really wish that we could have again. And I was really annoyed that it was being prohibited by an HOA, and I hated the idea that we lived in an HOA and that they would have been able to tell us that we can't have chickens. It just really frustrated me. And so the second we moved back to Georgia and lived in North Georgia again, we moved into a house and I made sure that there wouldn't be an HOA there. So we moved on about a half an acre, not the house that we currently live in on the property that we have now, but the previous one before that. And the first thing we did in February of 2023 is we got a small flock of chickens. You'll notice this habit in my videos that as I walk around anywhere, my goats are going to be quick to follow because they're psychopaths. But what we soon found out after we got the chickens again in 2023 is, as my shirt says, chickens are the gateway to conspiracies. You can get that in the link in our description here. We realized that that's actually true. We got chickens and that just opened up this entire world of so many other things that I wasn't passionate about before, but getting chickens kind of brought me down that road. And the same thing's probably going to happen to you. We got chickens and we started thinking about, where does all of our food come from? Why does everything seem to be making us sick? Why does other parts of the world seem to be much healthier than us? Why does our food system seem to be broken? And chickens kind of unlocked that part of my brain that I didn't have before. And that path ultimately led me to the idea of wanting to start kind of a full-scale homestead. But the thing is I couldn't afford 50, 100 acres like a lot of people have. These giant farms with cattle and horses and these giant systems that they have in place. All I had was a half an acre. And so I tried to do what I could, which was starting with chickens. And then we kind of developed to sourdough. We wanted to start a garden, but then we moved. We ended up moving in May of this year due to a job change. And so now we are on a new half-acre property and we're kind of starting from scratch again. And so, of course, I started with chickens. So we brought our entire original flock that we had at our old property and brought them to this property, and then we added a bunch of new ones as well. And we also added 3 pretty crazy goats. This is where you get to meet Bluebell. She's currently hanging out on our duck house. She is a registered female Nigerian dwarf. And you also get to meet the dynamic duo Clover. She's the brown one right here. She is a Nigerian dwarf. And Waffles, our only buck, and he is also a Nigerian dwarf. So like many of you watching, I had great desires and aspirations of self-sufficiency without really the proper space or funding really to pursue it. And so what I ended up having to do, was have to figure out what can I accomplish for what me and my family want in the space that we have available to us, which at the time was a half an acre. And so for space purposes, chickens was really the first avenue that made a lot of sense because chickens don't necessarily need a ton of space, though we had a decent sized backyard to be able to accommodate them. And so we ended up starting with chickens. And then sourdough was something that my wife had been interested in for a long time. And if you look at the ingredient list on a loaf of bread from the grocery store, it's expansive and unhealthy. And so my wife really had a desire to try sourdough. And all of this really led us down this path of seeing the scam of the food system and wanting a way out and just doing practical baby steps to get to that, which for us for a long time was simply chickens and sourdough. Now that's not a huge operation, but what it is a step in the right direction. But see, a lot changed when we moved onto the current property that we live on now because it's zone AG or agricultural, meaning that there's really not any livestock limitations as to what I'm allowed to have on here, even though I only have half an acre. The property that we previously lived on was zoned residential, meaning that there was restrictions on livestock. I could have chickens and ducks and things like that, basically, poultry, but I wasn't allowed to have anything else. And so the first thing that we did when we moved here, knowing that we could have really any livestock we wanted, was some Nigerian dwarf goats. So that was our next baby step. And what you see here is our current failed baby step. We've tried over the last couple of years to start a garden, but multiple different things happened. One time we just wanted to start one, but it was too late into the spring to really want to be able to do it the right way. And then the next spring of 2024, we realized we were moving. So we didn't want to start a garden if we weren't going to be able to keep it there. And so then we moved here, but throughout the whole moving process, that was just really stressful for anyone who's ever done a move before. It's terrible. And so we never got a garden started. And I really want to do a big expansive garden. And this is my property plan to do so in this nice big front yard here, because I don't much care for having a manicured front lawn. I would rather enclose this entire area and make it a huge garden. I'd like to grow vegetables. I'd like to put some fruit trees in here. I'd like to get some berry bushes and have a front yard where I can just come out and have as much food as I can grown in my own property here. But of course, that's baby steps. So right now we still go to the grocery store for all of our fruits and vegetables and all of those things. But eventually we'll get to a point where we can source a lot of that out of our front yard. And so this fall, we're going to start an herb garden just to get started, and then hopefully build it out into a big expansive garden in the spring. And the reason I'm so passionate about the garden, I'm so excited to get this space kind of up to where it needs to be an actual garden, because it's a front yard right now. The reason I'm so excited about that is because we made so many attempts to kind of get started on that at the old house. Like, we got some raised beds, but we never really built them. We got some grow bags. We bought some blueberry bushes and we were about to plant them. We actually planted a peach tree. We planted some blackberry vines. Like, we had a lot of systems in place, because for me, I want to grow a lot of fruit. I love fruit. I've got 3 kids under the age of 4. And so I go through a lot of fruit. And I had all those systems in place, and then we had to move. Now, the move was great. You know, we had an opportunity to go to a property that was zoned AG. We didn't have the money for all of the property that we wanted, but AG kind of gave us the freedom that we wanted. And so that's kind of where we're at. And now I'm able to have a garden in my front yard. There's no HOA. There's no city restrictions. And so I'm finally going to be able to kind of have my fruit forest and the garden that I want on the property that we have here. So I'm actually really excited about it. My boys have decided that the water hose is their new favorite toy. So I always have to drag it back into the chicken area, because they steal it for their own purposes, which a lot of the times is trying to spray the dog and the chickens and doing a lot of things they're not supposed to do. But what I was going to say is that the main thing that we really had to come to terms with when we were starting this from scratch homestead, and something that you're going to need to kind of battle with as well, is managing your expectations on what you can accomplish with the time, resources, and sanity that you have. Because if you're anything like me, you are, where is the proper slot here? That's probably it right there. If you're anything like me, you have a million ideas, you get extremely hyper focused, and you only just want to get started, and you're all gas and no brakes. And so for me, I've really had to come to terms with managing my expectations on what is achievable in certain time frames and things that we're doing. Hey, stop it. I had a rooster being mean. But for us, you know, I really want to start this garden, but building out all of the things are going to be really difficult. And the thing is I want to do a million different things. I want meat birds. I want to get pigs. I want to do a lot of things. And I've done a lot of Facebook group searching for all of those animals. But I come to realize that it's one of those things you got to be patient with. So for us, we know chickens. We are good at chickens and ducks. We're good at poultry. I'm still learning about these goats. These goats are mischievous. They escape every day, and I'm just really glad that they are food dependent, because if not, they would be on the other side of town right now. But we're trying to manage our expectations and get good at a few things and then slowly introduce others. And I would honestly encourage you guys to do the same, because trying to do everything at once is just going to make your brain break, because you're going to do everything kind of poorly rather than a couple of things really well. So my biggest piece of advice is still the same. I would start with chickens. Chickens are the greatest dual purpose animal really of all time, arguably just one below a cow. Okay, because cows provide milk and steak, and those are 2 of the greatest commodities of all time. But chickens provide a very similar type of thing, where they're dual purpose animals. They're meat birds, right? So if she decided to make me mad one day, she could be on my dinner plate that night. And they also provide you eggs every single day. Both great sources of protein, and they really are hardy, pretty easy animals to raise, and they don't require a lot of space. And that's the beauty of homesteading as well, is you can get creative. I just had a cricket jump on me and it scared me. You can get creative with what you want to do. You don't have to have big luxurious chicken coops if you don't want to. If you want to go small scale, you absolutely can. You don't need 29 chickens. You know, we started with 6 and we loved it. And so really just make homesteading what you want it. You know, it's kind of like a blank canvas that you can create really anything you want to. And you can even get a wavy flappy arm guy like this to protect your chickens from hawks. And so if you're new here and you're thinking about getting some chickens, welcome. My name is Brian, and I'm going to be building this homestead for the years to come. So make sure you follow along. We're also on all of the other platforms as well, but we're starting fresh here on YouTube. And so make sure you like and subscribe, support the channel. And if you want your foil hat gang merch, go to our website, bnrhomestead.com. The link is in our description. And I'm just glad you're here, and I hope you guys stick around because we're going to do a lot more. I plan on posting about 1 video a week, 2 if I'm feeling squirrely that week, but just count on 1 video a week where I just give you a little bit of a deeper insight on what's going on here on the homestead. On the short form things, it's a lot more just educational entertainment stuff, but I really just want to give you guys an opportunity to have a deeper dive on what we're doing here. We really want to learn how to be more self-sufficient. This is baby step stuff with us. We don't pretend to know everything because we don't. We're really learning alongside you guys and teaching you what we know pretty much when we learn it. And you know, we do have experience with chickens and ducks and poultry, and so you know, I do see myself as a little bit more learned on those things, but I'm learning so much right now. We're about to start a garden in the spring. We have a lot going on here, so make sure you're following along and you don't miss out, and make sure you're subscribing for more homesteading tips.